Okay, another part in it is just like the chords when they're getting to the chorus, and it's pretty simple because once you're coming out of that D chord from the verse 2, we're going using that same shape, the that C sus with if you can check that out. So like my first finger is at the D note on the B string, and then my ring finger and my pinky are at the 5th fret on the D and the G strings. You can throw the in there if you really want. It doesn't really clash that bad to me. So it's going to go like this. So you kind of get this really growling chord sound. So that's a C. For the G chord, all I do is I keep my index finger anchored and I put my ring finger up at the A string at the 5th fret, which is your D note. And I actually play all these guys. I might play them both open or mute the D string, but it sounds like this. So if I'm going from C to G, it sounds like this. Notice how it sounds pretty big and full, and that's fine. I could even move both fingers up a string, but that's a little bit more complex. It sounds pretty sweet though, but so you can hear. Sounds pretty close if I do this. Just sounds a little bit bigger. I like open strings ringing out, especially with a little bit of reverb and delay. It just really sounds full. So I'll just play the progression. Oh, the next chord is this E minor shape, and what I do, it's kind of like a similar chord I'd play like a C sharp minor in an E progression, but we're in, you know, the key of G. So all that looks like is this, and I'm going to put my my ring finger at the 7th fret of the A string, which is your E note. My first finger at the 5th fret of the D string, and then my pinky at the 7th fret of the G string. So if you can see it. And if you want, you can strum the whole thing down because those are all notes in the E minor chord. So it sounds like that. Again, something really big and full. There's a couple other options I would use, but this sounded pretty cool to me. So it would be like this. We're going to C, G, E minor, so the first part. So those are the first 3 chords. Again, I'm using maybe some anchor fingers. Part of it is that index being anchored. Once I move this ring finger up a string, that's my new anchor, and I'm sliding up 1 fret and then putting my index and pinky in their respective places. You know what, I'm also muting that E string with my thumb a little bit. It might get a little boomy with that in there. You don't really want that because the bass is probably already playing something that thick. So anyways, here it goes. So it's here's a minor. And they're going to go back to the C, to the G. Now with the D, I got a couple options. I might play that same kind of growling shape that we played earlier. Sounds really good. I like that. And again, you just want to have your hand set up in a position to play the next chord as easily and as fluidly as possible. So especially with some of these chord inversions, I'm always thinking about, okay, what's going to be the path of least resistance? What's going to get me to that next chord as smoothly as possible? So I'm not worrying too much about the technicalities, and we can just play and, you know, worship and be lost in that moment together. So the next part of the progression is going to go, it starts C, G, E minor, and then it's C, G, D. So here's what those two things sound like. So that's the D. Another way I might play the D is index finger at the 5th fret of the A string, almost like a D power chord. Ring finger at the 7th fret of the D string. like your power chord. But I'll skip the G string and let it ring open and put my pinky at the 7th fret of the B string. I really think that sounds cool because you've got that really tight interval. It's like a, I don't know, minor second or something. Somebody smarter than me will call it out. Anyways, so here's what that sounds like. That's a minor chord. Sounds really big. I think that F sharp against that G sounds pretty dissonant, and the melody note might be somewhere close in that range, and so I just think it fits really uniquely. So I like playing that one. When it gets to the A minor 7th in the same progression, I don't want to go over all the chords again, but I'm really, out of the E minor, that funky E minor shape, all I'm going to do for the A minor is I'm going to play that A string open, and I'm going to put my index finger at the 5th fret on the G string, and I'm going to put my ring finger at the 7th fret on the D string. So it sounds like this. I'm actually going to mute the B string, this second one right here, with the underside of my index finger. That way you can play the entire 5 strings down and you get that E note in there. And it's, again, that the more strings that are ringing open, the fuller your guitar is going to sound. And especially with the delay, it does a bunch of work, so you don't have to do too much. And you can just really have a good time strumming and playing the song itself. So the progression: E minor, back to C, I think it goes to D, I'm sorry. That doesn't matter at that point though. You get the idea of all those chords. And then it's going to go to a bridge, which I'll cover in the next one.